Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Growing Stronger Together, a podcast for people who care about children. Thank you for listening. My name is Kim Hale, and I'm going to start this conversation with a confession, which is not my norm, actually. I know very little about sports. My younger brother, Jason, can attest to that fact. He has made an effort for the last at least 45 years to try to sway my interest and my extracurricular activities in the direction of sports, any kind of sport, but especially college sports. Many of you know that I grew up in Blacksburg, Virginia, the home of Virginia Tech, so there were lots of things that I could have done, and it just has never been my interest. He's just not been successful in convincing me that that's a thing to do. You are probably wondering, what in the world does that confession have to do with the Growing Stronger Together podcast? Well, I'm confessing this personal information, probably much to Jason's embarrassment, because I'm in the Maypop Media Studio with Dr. Richard Sander, who is the athletic director at East Tennessee State University. And before I let you say anything, the next announcement is we're not going to talk about sports.
We'll probably get it in there somewhere.
You think?
Yeah, I think probably so.
So Dr. Sander, who I lovingly call Doc, along with a lot of other people, right? We call you Doc.
They do, yep.
You and I have been friends for a while, and I'm so grateful.
Well, I mean, every time we have somebody come, a potential coach coming in to, work for us, with kids, we try to get them connected with you. You can kind of help them navigate their way through the move and, where they need to look for, different resources that are available for their children. So.
And I love that.
Yeah, I know.
I love working with kids and families. So my other confession is that I've been so busy focused on language and literacy on these podcasts, I've neglected talking with people about children who have challenges and struggles and obstacles. And so I was very purposeful inviting you today. I waited until after the Final Four. Did you
Appreciate
notice?
that. I did.
Because I knew you'd be busy. Because you and I have had some great conversations. And I think you have a lot to share. So for those of you that do not know Dr. Sander, you started your career as a high school basketball coach in Chattanooga. Am I right?
Right. Yep.
And I'm not going to say what year that was or how
No.
old I was, but it was a while ago. And then from there, you went to Cincinnati.
Right.
And is that where you're from?
I am born and raised in Cincinnati.
Okay, so you were a high school coach there at, is it Anderson High School?
Anderson High School. I did that for 10 years.
Now, did you go to Anderson High School?
No,
Or
I
what was
didn't.
the
So
draw?
that was kind of, I went to the Catholic school there, McNicholas and Anderson. They were the big rivals. But
Oh,
yeah.
you've never told me that.
Yeah. So, the way I got the job was my high school coach left my high school and became superintendent of schools in the school district where Anderson was. So when the job came open, he reached out and, we kind of changed my life, moving back to Cincinnati, coaching for 10 years.
Well, now wait a minute, because didn't you play basketball in high school?
I did.
So what did your high school basketball teammates think about you being at the other school?
Yeah. I don't think they think.
They were over it?
Yeah, they were over by then.
Okay. Yeah, that's...
Yeah, but I was pretty young. So it was one of the biggest high schools in Ohio. So yeah, I think I was 26 when I got that job.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah, I was pretty young.
Yeah, you were pretty young.
Mhm.
We're not going to say what year that was either. Okay, so then you left that and you came back to Tennessee,
I did.
to Memphis.
Right. Yeah. So I'd gone back to school and got my doctorate in higher ed administration and curriculum and instruction. And so there was an opportunity that came available to help build some programmatic things for student athletes there at Memphis. So I went back to Memphis and actually somehow or another got into fundraising and marketing and corporate relations and did that at Memphis for a little bit and then for about 4 or 5 years and then moved to Virginia to Richmond. I got the gig as athletic director at Virginia Commonwealth University, so did that for a while, and then retired. And somehow or another, President Nolan, called me and said, "Hey, can you come up here and look at our program?" And I'd been retired for 3 or 4 years, and I did, and came to Johnson City, and he said, "Can you help me out for a couple months?" And that was in 2013. A couple months now, here it's 2024. So yeah, and I think
It's a lot,
yeah, I was there like 3 days, and he said, "I decided we're going to restart football. Can you help me restart football?" And initially, I was going to be here for 2 months, but now it's 2024. So
it's
yeah,
2025, Doc.
oh, 25. Yeah, well,
25, yeah.
I'm a little bit behind. So
I'm still jet lagged from
yeah,
the
I
San
am.
Antonio
Yeah,
trip.
yeah, it is. Oh well.
Well, so,
Yep,
and I mean, that's a big deal because we now have a stadium on campus
we do. Yeah.
and our teams have done really well. In
They,
fact, Jason's going to be so proud of me because I know that other universities try to take, and they do sometimes take our coaches.
they do. Yeah. How about that?
How about that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, see, I have been paying a little bit of attention. Are you
Yeah,
proud?
you do. I'm impressed. I'm impressed.
So you and I met, oh, I don't know, within the first couple of years of you being here,
Yep,
right?
we
Remember
did. Yep.
that you hosted this event and
Mm-hmm.
had several sports folks come. And
Mm-hmm.
because I was in the College of Ed as a associate dean, I got to attend this event
Mm-hmm.
and I knew very few people, remember?
Right, I do.
And Jason was just so irritated, which you laugh about
Yeah,
this,
I
but
do.
one of the best things about being his older sister and knowing you is that I can just like, really get his goat
Uh-uh.
because I get to do things and I get to talk to you about things that he just doesn't see he sees it as such an injustice that a person that is sports dense like me has such a great life and that I can talk with you about,
Oh,
oh, NIL or any of those things that I know
exactly.
nothing about really.
Yep.
It was
Well,
very fun, right?
yeah, it is.
It
It
is fun.
is.
Um, and so I'm probably going to embarrass you because you're so humble, but um, I've thought about this a lot in the past couple of days that your friendship to me as a person that was kind of thrown into administration, higher ed, and really I don't have the temperament for that kind of thing. And I had a lot of experiences that were good, but I also had experiences that were hard. And you have been an incredible mentor to me. And I wrote down this morning the things that I love about you. Okay. You always have a positive attitude. Like there have been times that we've had lunch or that you've come over to visit me and you were struggling with some really big issues like budgets, right?
Yeah, we always struggle with that.
And I mean, I would be sometimes I look at you like I don't know how you keep doing this because it's just challenge after challenge after challenge, right? But you always have a growth mindset. In fact, one time we talked, and it's been recently, that you said to me, Kim, you are willing as a person to be uncomfortable. That's what you said to me.
Hmm.
And that's what growth is. It's pushing your limits, keep learning and be uncomfortable. And I'd really never thought about that, but that's so true. And you have that mentality from playing basketball, from being a coach, like
Yeah, probably that's where that kind of comes from. You're gonna have, games where you don't do very well, and you got two options. You can either feel sorry for yourself or you can figure out how to be better. You
right,
know what I mean? Look at
right.
ways to improve and, you know, be ready for the next challenge it faces, So yeah, I think it probably does come from, athletics and competing and, trying to help people be the best they can be.
Well, I appreciate that because I have needed that kind of encouragement. Um, it's been a blessing. The other things I love about you is that you're emotionally intelligent. You build trust with people. You're very quick to figure out who they are as a person and what they value, what's important to them, and then you make those connections. When you talk to me about the student athletes or when you talk to me about coaches, that's very obvious to me that they are people first to you and that you support them much like you have me, regardless of their status or what they bring to the university or all of those things, right? Everyone's treated equal. Student athletes, they're all important. The quarterback's not the only one that gets your attention. And I've loved that. You also recognize it takes time for people to grow, and you give them the patience, or you have the patience to give them that ability, that time, that support. You don't give up easily on kids or on coaches or on people, right?
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, I think that goes back to, my days when I was a high school coach, you know what I mean? You really have to, you're not always blessed with the most talented or the biggest or whatever. So, you just have to really work with each individual and try to understand what they need to be the best that they can be and work with them to do that and take extra time and, treat every one of them as an individual because, they're all different. They all have different experiences. So try to treat everybody the same just never made any sense to me because they all come from different backgrounds. They have different skill levels. They have different motivations. So I think, that's, I mean, that's what I say. People always ask me, what's your leadership style? I said, hey, I'm not sure I got one. I just kind of revert back to when I was a high school basketball coach, and I just try to treat, folks like, I did when I was coaching those kids, And that kind of, I think helps me from the standpoint of focusing on what can I do to make them the best that they can be. That's pretty much kind of the way I think,
You lead with your values, and I like that. And then you really, in doing that, you inspire people, right? You do, like, you have really, our friendship has really made me think about life differently and think about myself differently. And you've inspired me, even though you haven't meant to, right? Like, I know that when you come to visit me, we talk about your family and your grandchildren. And in fact, I delight in the fact that I'm probably the only person most days that does not talk to you. We do not talk about sports.
No,
And that's a very unusual thing for you, correct?
it really is. Yeah, it really is. Yeah. So much of everything that I do is just kind of, focused on sports and athletes and facilities and just about everything that's tied to sports. So yeah, there's very few people that, I don't know, like you said, you're probably the only one I talk to that doesn't have some connection with sports.
And if we talk about sports, it's because I want just a tidbit of information that I can mention to Jason to get his attention and then say, oh, I don't remember the rest of it, Jason, so that he gets really frustrated.
Yeah, that's not right. You shouldn't do that.
It's just so fun.
Right.
I mean, little brothers can be such a pain.
Yeah.
He just had his 54th birthday, and I texted my dad and said, I guess we're going to keep him, right? Because when I was 6, I'm telling my age, but when I was 6, my mom and dad had him, and I was so angry for years because I wasn't happy with that. And he was a boy. So, he and my dad did a lot of things together, and I was a daddy's girl. And so he's had to grow on me. So I've decided, I think he was 50 when I called him on his birthday and said, I think I've decided I like you.
Yeah. Took a little while.
He really enjoyed meeting you
Yeah.
because you two had a lot to talk about, I guess, from your time in Memphis.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
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 He,
Yeah. So yeah, we were in the
he
same
knew all
conference
these
with that. Yeah.
players, and because he knows,
Right.
you can call him at any time and ask him some random sport question and he can rattle off.
Mm-hmm.
It's the craziest thing.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't work with me, right?
I know. It's
No.
probably you
Um,
don't have a
so
strong background in that.
yes, that's not my thing. Um, so all of those things I love about you. There are two other things that I can think of off the top of my head. One is that I guess it was when you were at VCU, you wrote a children's book,
Right. Mm-hmm.
and that was to honor a female coach. Am I right? Athletic
Well,
director.
well, we did a few. We did one for Kay Yao,
That's the
who
one
was
I'm
the
thinking.
NC State, who, was an incredible coach, but also, did so much for so many people because, she had a major battle with cancer and just kind of really was encouraging to a lot of people. Don't ever give up, that kind of mentality. So Kay was terrific, and she won, the ESPN SB for courage and all sort of things. So yeah, we did a book trying to, use, her experience, but also her name and her reputation to help, kids really understand how to, work through things and don't give up. And, you know, um, you'll be okay as long as you just continue to, focus on what your goals are. So it was pretty good. But yeah, we, trying to use, sports and kids books, get them to read, but also have, pretty significant messages in these books. So yeah, we probably did, I don't know how many we did, 5 or 6 of them.
Oh,
So,
really?
mhm,
I don't know that I knew that. I had the book.
mhm.
You gave me the one
One with
for
Kay, yeah.
Kay,
Hmm.
but I don't know about the others.
Yeah, we did one at VCU with Anthony Grant, who's now the coach at Dayton. But this was pretty much about, the story was kind of a kid who was never really accepted into his peer group, who wasn't involved in athletics and everything. And there was a kid who was kind of like the star of the show. And um, he came to a VCU basketball game, and our mascot took him into the locker room after the game, and he talked to Coach Grant. Coach Grant says, "We're all in this together. We're a team, and these guys all help each other out." And that was kind of the message. And then um, the kid goes back, and the kid who had been excluded from everything, he starts to include him and teaches him how to be successful. So that was a pretty neat story.
Yeah, do you have a copy of
I
those?
don't know if I do or I don't, but it's a really.
You need to gift a certain friend who really loves children's books.
Mhm.
You need to gift her with
Okay.
these books.
Okay. Yep.
And then my next question is, why haven't you done a book at ETSU?
Well, it's just about time, you know what I
It,
mean? But I mean, we probably should. I mean, um, I numerous times thought about doing one, you know what I mean? So, yeah, we probably do, because I think there are some, I mean, I think it's a really good vehicle to get kids to read and understand, an important concept in their life. Yeah, we probably should do that.
So are you seeing I see a theme here that's been lifelong with you,
Hmm.
right? Not just the teaching and the guiding and the inspiring, but you've always had a heart and a desire to include everyone and to make sure everyone's a part, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's important. I think it's really important. I mean, like you said, sports have always been a big part of my life. So, I think there's a lot of, really good um, concepts that are taught through sport, So, but sometimes you kind of got to identify those so people
Mm-hmm,
realize what
mm-hmm.
they are. And,
Right.
that's clearly was teamwork, helping other people out. I mean, that's kind of it. And then, the book with Kay was about, don't give up, keep doing what you can, and uh, things will turn out okay. So yeah, I mean, I think that, and I just, because of my education, just felt, books could be a way to, kind of get those messages across to kids and parents. So yeah, that's what we did.
Well, because another thing that you've done is you've wanted athletes to go out to the elementary schools in the morning and around here
Yep.
and talk with kids about, you know, perseverance and sticking with it. And things can be hard, but you keep going.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think, like I said, there's many really important concepts that, athletes now, not all not all athletes are perfect. It's not, but I mean, I think they have done something in their life that has, good lessons for people to hear, because they've had to work hard to get to this level. This is a pretty elite level that we deal with right now.
Mm-hmm.
To get to this level, that they've had to work hard, and, they've had to focus on a goal, and, they've had to overcome some challenges. So yeah, those are some things we think are very valuable.
And sometimes they have a bad game,
Oh yeah,
but they have to come back and
right,
keep practicing and
right.
go back out on the court and
Yeah, I
try
mean, it's
again.
just like anything in life. When you have a failure or something that doesn't work, everybody's going to have that. The important thing is how you deal with it,
Mhm.
you know,
That's
how do
great.
you move forward?
No, I agree with that.
Yeah,
You and I have very similar values. That's another reason we're good friends, right?
it is.
So the next thing that I love about you, and this is probably one of the top ones, is that you are a granddad. You're a dad, and your kids are wonderful. I've met Jimmy and Leslie, and they are wonderful. I haven't met Jack, your grandson Jack, I don't think.
Well, you know, Jack's going to come to school here next year.
No,
Yeah. He's going to
really.
transfer here. Yeah, so you get a chance to meet him.
What's he going to major in? Education? Does he
No,
want
I
to come
don't
over
think
and be
so.
with me?
No, I don't think so.
Darn.
But yeah, I don't know what he's going to major in.
Well, that's exciting
Yeah, it is. It'll be good for
because
me.
he's a good kid.
Yeah, he's great. You'll like him.
It will be good for you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
because you love being a granddad.
I do.
You do. And
Mm-hmm.
I love that you love being a granddad. And this is what we talk about most of the time.
Yep. Sure is. We talk about him all the time.
And it's because you have Jack,
Mm-hmm.
who's college age, obviously. Then your son Jimmy has two children,
Right.
Finnegan
Mm-hmm.
and Fontaine.
Right.
And I've met them a few times.
Mm-hmm.
Finnegan, I mean, both of them have won my heart. I have to tell you, like Fontaine could rule the world, and I just think that's great because she should, absolutely. And then Finnegan is special because he has to be the sweetest, most loving, and pretty upbeat when I've seen him, kid.
Yep.
And yet, Doc, he was born with a birth defect.
Yeah, he was.
And you've been even though I'm a school psychologist and I've worked with kids with disabilities for a long time, you were the person who looked at me and said, Kim, this happens 1 out of every 33 births.
Right.
There's a child born with a birth defect. And I had to go, really? Like, that's much more frequent than you would think.
Yeah, I mean, I was shocked, when, of course, when, Finn was born, you go, oh, wow, this is, a challenge, and I just started to do research. It's really not that uncommon, 1 in 33 kids, that's pretty common. And so, yeah, I mean, I think when you have a child born with a birth defect, and, Finn was born, and, immediately within 24 hours, they had to do life-saving surgery, and he's probably since then had, I don't know, 5 or 6 different surgeries, and then, he's had some other challenges that are all kind of, I think, somewhat related to the birth defect. You and I have talked a little bit about that, and, and yet, he's the sweetest child in the world, you know what I mean? And you just, your heart goes out to him. And so, but the one thing, that we kind of identified, fairly quickly was that when you have a child born with a birth defect or any child that has some sort of challenge out there, is that it really dramatically impacts the family. So it's not just about Finnegan, but the family and everything that's going on. Everything from, the time involvements of, Finn having, so many different therapists that he has to see, so much you have to deal with in regard to, Medicaid and, how you deal with all those sort of things, and then putting together a plan and just, you try to sit there and think about how can we help him be on a path that will give him a productive, fruitful life. And so you think about those kind of things all the time, and that's in your mind. And I know talking to Jim, my son, Finnegan's father, he's very focused and committed to trying to give Finn the most, I don't know if this is the right word, but one normal experience, and he's going to have challenges down the road. How do you help him work through those? But like I said, also the family is dramatically impacted because it's always on their mind. They have a lot of things they have to deal with. And I mean, when you look at the research, I mean, the probability of, just things like divorce, I mean, it's just crazy when you look at the numbers because of all the issues that
so much stress.
all the stressors and everything that's involved with that. So yeah, so that's been something that, it's become very much a part of, you know, my life and our family's lives. And, we kind of thought, okay, well, what can we do? Some of the things we did. So one of the things I wanted to do was create a, 501c3 that would help families of kids with birth defects. And as we got into it, we see different things and try to help with different things. But, like with and so, we were able to raise some money and do some things. And, Jim kind of works on that a fair amount and does some things and works with you in a couple different areas. But, how do you, I mean, even things like, empathy, how do you teach kids empathy for, a child that's born and is different, you know what I mean, and has different challenges? How do you teach those kids? And looked at some things, developed a curriculum for teachers to help them teach empathy. But maybe we should write a book about that. You know
Maybe
what
you
I
should.
mean? And
Well, because Doc, really, it just hit me right now. Your whole life, you've been working towards this job of being Finnegan's grandpa.
well, I've had a lot of experience that has kind of put me in this position
Yes.
to think about it this way. You
Yes.
know what I mean? So yeah, and I mean, you just see other families, and we see, at times, even on our staff, Joe Silvestri, one of
Yes.
our assistant coaches, has a child who was born with, major birth defect, and just seeing how that, he deals with it. And I mean, there's a lot of things that are, really, really rewarding when you're doing that, dealing with helping young people and doing that sort of thing. But I think once again, if we can help families understand, the how to navigate, the challenges that are out there with a child who does have some, challenges. So, that's one of the things, we try to do is to help families and where to, where to look for, different support. Because I think, that's really important. And it's amazing because, Finnegan's, you know, I mean, he's the first experience I've ever had with, somebody in my family that has had, birth defect or a challenge. And, it's really, really interesting. And then, of course, his little sister Fontaine, like you said, she, uh, she's full speed ahead. She's terrific. She's got a lot of energy, and it's kind of interesting to see the dynamic between her and Finn. I mean, she kind of makes sure, and she's 2 years younger than him, but
Yes.
she kind of
Yes.
makes sure that people are going to treat Finn right.
That's
You know what I
exactly
mean?
right.
So that's kind of
Yeah,
cool.
she's pretty fierce about that,
Oh
isn't she?
yeah, she is. Yeah.
And I identify with her a lot.
Hmm.
Every time you say her name, I just smile and laugh,
Yeah.
right? Because I've watched her in action of,
Hmm.
just let me take over because I can run the whole world.
Yeah. I think
And
that's
I think
kind
Jimmy has his work cut out for him with her because she's going to test him every step of the way.
yeah, yeah. Oh, no question. She's she's dynamite. And so I mean, you don't know. Is that because of just her nature? Has she identified there may be a need there, and she's got to
Right.
step in? I don't know, but I
I
think
don't know because I think if I talked with Leslie long enough, I might see some similarities
yeah,
there. Of,
yeah,
your daughter's she's a very strong, smart woman
yeah. She is.
who could also run the world. And I've never met Mary, your wife, but my guess is
Yeah.
that
No. Yeah.
she's the same.
No. Yeah. She's
Yes,
terrific.
she's the same.
Yeah.
At some point, I'll meet her.
Yeah.
I
You
might
will.
love her more than I love you. That might
Probably
be.
will. Yeah. She's got a lot more going for her than I do. I guarantee you.
So one of the things that you have, and I know this about you, is that one, you're very close to your children.
Hmm.
They both, I would guess, interact with you daily, every other day, pretty frequently.
Pretty much.
And so when Finnegan came into your family, did that change? Did it become more deliberate or was it
Yeah.
always that way?
I mean, it was always that way, but I think probably, um, once again, the awareness of the difference of how life is going to move forward when you have, somebody that needs the kind of support that that Finn does, that I think it kind of, like I said, I think like most things in life, you can go two different ways. And, I think, our family kind of just kind of came together even more so, you know what I mean? And know that's out there and trying to support in a way that is the right way to support, And so I think that's kind of it. Because, Leslie, my daughter, she's there to help when she can, but, not, you don't want to
Don't want to
interfere
overstep,
with,
right?
anything that's going on, and you don't know everything that's going on. So I think, like you said, she's pretty smart. So she kind of knows when to, kind of help and when to kind of back away and, let, her brother figure out,
And who's the oldest, Jimmy or Leslie?
Les is 4 years older than
Oh,
Jim. Yeah.
see, I'm seeing the spontane.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, there's some genetics there. Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah. So and I know we've talked about this too, that as you've been in your world of college sports or just sports in general, and you've met other people and who have had or have a child with a birth defect, is that the advice you give them, of getting as much support as they can, or what kind of words of wisdom do you
Yeah, I mean, I
share?
think that's really important. Don't be afraid to ask for help and support, and reach out to people, who can support you. There's a lot of people that can, and so don't. There's, I guess, there's no reason not to do that, and I mean, there's no reason to not. I mean, don't feel funny about that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, some people think it's a stigma.
Right.
They
Yeah.
don't want to
Yeah.
talk
Exactly. That they don't want to talk about it, or kind of ignore it. You can't do that. You gotta. You can't take that. Take that journey by yourself. You can really help yourself by reaching out to other people, and then you can help yourself too by sharing your journey with other people to help them get through their situation. And I don't want to make it sound like this is a horrible situation or very difficult. It's just different. You know what I mean? And
Right.
we have to figure out how to,
Right.
you know, get through, not get through this, but take this path.
Yeah.
It's a little different path. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's not bad.
It's not bad. It's just different.
It's just different.
And you have to do things differently.
Right.
So you have to think about them intentionally.
Right.
Whereas if you had a child without a birth defect, you just take for granted that this is what we're going to do. Right.
Yeah. And I think that's important. It's just a different path. You know what I mean? It's not wrong. It's not bad. It's just different,
And he's been one of the biggest blessings in your life.
Oh, yeah.
What does he call you? Does he call you Pops? What does he call you?
Poppy. They call me Poppy. Poppy. Yeah.
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 Yes. Both of them.
Yeah.
Really enjoy you. And when they get to come here, it's a highlight for them, right?
Oh, yeah. They love coming, being in the gym, being in the dome. Yeah. They enjoy that. So.
Well, and talking about the gym, so it hasn't been that long ago when you started Finnegan's Challenge, which is your nonprofit, and to raise money and awareness for that, you spent 24 hours. I think you napped a little bit.
I did.
But you were shooting free throws, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how many did you make?
So what I wanted to do is in 24 hours, I wanted to make 3,300, to tie to the number. 33 kids are born in a birth defect. So basically that was the plan. And then there was a national publication that kind of heard about it, and they did some research or something, and they said something like, we think you can only make, I don't know what the number is, 3,500 or something like that. And so they said they give a dollar for every, or was it $10 for every free throw over 3,500 or something like that. So that just became a challenge. So I was,
And one thing you don't
yeah.
do is challenge an athlete.
So, I think I wound up making, I forget,
Yes.
3,856.
Yes.
And so that was it. And then, so that was part of the fundraisers. Would you give $1 for every free throw that I make, or would you give a penny or a nickel? And so um, that turned out to be pretty good. I think I forget how much money we raised, but about $150,000 or something. And,
Yeah.
a lot of people got behind it
Yeah.
and did it. And so, yeah, we got some national exposure for it. And yeah, so
Charles Barkley.
Charles
Charles
Barkley,
Barkley.
yeah, Charles
Yes.
gave.
Because the thing I didn't mention, Doc, is that you never really tell me this, but I know that you have friends who are really famous athletes. And we don't talk about it because I don't really know much about it, but I know that you've been in this business for a long time and you're well respected. And the fact that Charles Barkley on his podcast said something about, hey, my buddy Doc is doing this today, and
Yeah,
I'm going to give, I don't know, $25,000.
$25,000. Yeah, so but Charles is a terrific guy. I think people see Charles as kind of this character, kind of personality, big personality, but he's a terrific person. He does a lot of good things for
Hmm.
people. He
Hmm.
really does. So yeah, that was really nice.
That was really
Yeah.
nice. It was
Yep.
great. And so there's a website,
There
finneganschallenge.org.
is. Yeah.
And I know Jimmy and I have talked about this, but not for a while. One of the things that you and Jimmy would really love is for people to share their stories,
Right.
right?
Absolutely. Yeah. We think that, sharing stories just help, other people really kind of feel better about where they are, that they know they're not in this by themselves.
Yes.
I think that's important. That's one of the things that with Finn, I'm not sure we really had much of a um, support group, or a support entity to really help talk to about, what do you do here? What do you do
Mm-hmm.
there?
Mm-hmm.
So I think if people would be willing to do that, I think it will help other people.
I think you're right.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
um,
So they
but
could, I checked, you can go on Finnegan's Challenge and put your contact information in there. And
yeah, that'd be
yeah,
great.
that would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jimmy will reach out to you. I'm happy to talk with people.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I wanted to mention that you've really, you probably don't realize this, but you've inspired is that at Niswonger Children's Hospital here in Johnson City, that Ballad Health owns and runs, they have really pursued Karen Skatsina, who is a host and really the head person on this podcast, has pursued federal funding to have a child navigation for medically complex children like Finn. They now have a team that really helps the family navigate this world of therapists and specialists and something that's really important at children's hospitals. And so we've talked at times about connecting Finnegan's Challenge with that. And
Yep.
I still hope that's around the corner, because I think there's a lot of commonality there, and that your family could really help with that intent.
Yeah, I hope so. I think that, like you said, I think, we could, do something really special and hopefully create a model that, other communities could kind of modify to their particular situation, because I think it is really important.
Mm-hmm.
I think, like you said, I mean, having somebody that can help you connect with therapists, like we've talked, Finn had a major eating
Right.
situation where I guess, I forget when it was, but maybe after his fifth or sixth surgery, he just decided he wasn't going to eat anymore and he wasn't going to drink anymore. So he had to have a feeding tube put in. And so, of course, trying to find a feeding therapist. And, Jim worked with numerous, not really knowing, but had different people. They connected with different feeding therapists, and, they'd make a little progress, and then it'd kind of go away. And then 6 months later, try a different feeding therapist, and so on and so forth. So, I mean, and then eventually they found one, and you and I have talked about it, we don't know why, but maybe 6 months ago they found a feeding therapist that rather than go to their office and have him work with them there, that therapist came to their house and worked with him there. Now, for some reason or another, that's worked. Now, Finn's eating just like any other 10
Which
or
is
11-year-old. Yeah,
fantastic.
it is. It is.
Because that worried you, it worried me, worried everybody. But I'm like you. I think that because this person comes to the house and it's part of the routine for Finn, because we know that for everybody, if you can fit it into your routine, then that's the way to do it. It's hard to integrate that when you go to an office and work on it, and then you have to translate that back to your life.
Right.
So, but I also know how challenging that is to find those folks. And Jimmy's in Richmond, so and that's a metropolitan area compared to where we are, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, if we can work on that with Ballad, that'd be great.
Yeah. So anything, we can do to help. But I mean, that's just an example, I think, of, if there were, just more resources that were made available to families, you could, if we'd have known, a few things, maybe we could have found that earlier for Finn, you know what I mean? So, but yeah, so no, he's doing good right now.
He is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is he coming to visit soon?
Yeah, I think they'll come this summer.
Oh,
That's
good.
what
I can't wait.
talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to make sure I get to spend some time with
Oh
them.
yeah, that'd be great.
Well, and then like next year, you and me and Jack, we could all go to lunch.
Yeah, we can.
I'm sure Jack will be like, "Oh, that's just exactly what I want to do is go to lunch with a professor."
Yeah.
My granddad.
No, he will. He, college kids free lunch.
Well, this is true. That's true.
Yeah. Just like professors free lunch.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah, you owe me one. Even though I should owe you one because you came here for me today.
No, we're good.
Well, I so appreciate you. You know what? In so many ways. Thank you for coming today and thank you for sharing. I think that a lot of people, like you said, they think that they are all by themselves in this. They don't realize that other people struggle and that other people have had to navigate something different.
Right.
And it's comforting. And it's comforting to know that this guy, this Dr. Richard Sander, who's done all these things in his life and knows all of these people, who just came back from the Final Four, who's raising money for ETSU, NIL, and all that stuff, that he's a granddad and he loves Jack and Fontaine and Finnegan and in general just loves people.
Yeah, and I think one of the important things, like I said, is when you're faced with those kind of things, it's just realize it's just a different path you've got to go down. It's not good or bad. It's just a different path. So
and you learn the most when you're uncomfortable. You've told me that.
Yeah, you do.
You do.
When you're pushed out of your
So
comfort zone.
The good Lord did not want you to leave this earth without learning a little bit more, Richard Sander.
I don't know. I hope so. I hope so.
Thank you all for listening. It's wonderful to be able to have this podcast. Of all the things I do, this is one of my favorites. I want to say thank you to our sponsor, Ballad Health, and thank you, Mitch McGarry, for having such a great studio and working with us to record this podcast. Stay tuned. I'll have more guests coming in the next few weeks, and it'll sure to be fun, no doubt. Take care, and I look forward to talking with you next time.